total consecration to the Virgin Mary.
Wow.
And I kept
Wow.
seeing this, and I thought, I'm going to buy this. I mean, what is this about? It keeps showing up. So I bought the book and read it. And I'm telling you, Adrian, as soon as I open its pages, within the first, 20 pages of that magnificent book, I realized I've got to do this.
Wow.
I have to do this. And so even while I was a Methodist pastor, I made an act of total consecration to the Blessed Virgin Mary.
Oh,
Okay, you have to kind of put it in context. So I am a United Methodist pastor. This is in the year 2019. So the spring of 2019. So not very long ago, I was serving a wonderful church and with wonderful people. And it was one of those appointments, church appointments, that if you received it, you would just feel incredibly honored. Well, I never really let go of my Marian love. Even as a United Methodist pastor, early on, I began to pray the rosary. And at first, I would hide this from people. I was like, man, if my people found out I was praying the rosary, they may send me before the bishop. I might get kicked out. But then I found out that Anglicans do this. You know, John Wesley was really an Anglican. He was the founder of the Methodist Church, but he was Anglican. So there are Anglicans who pray the rosary. Well, once I found that out, I was open about it. And no one really made a fuss about it. So my Marian devotion really remained with me for all of my time as a Protestant pastor. And I loved preaching during the season of Advent, because during the season of Advent for non-Catholic churches, that's the one season of the year where Mary shows up.
yes.
And I loved to just preach about what we are finding about her in Luke's gospel. Well, in 2019, and I share it this way, you know how these, like Amazon.com will have these book recommendations? Like if you buy a book, it'll recommend other books.
Yes.
So there was a particular book that kept showing up in my feed, and it was the total consecration to the Virgin Mary by. And I kept seeing this, and I thought, I'm going to buy this. I mean, what is this about? It keeps showing up. So I bought the book and read it. And I'm telling you, Adrian, as soon as I open its pages, within the first, 20 pages of that magnificent book, I realized I've got to do this.
Wow.
I have to do this. And so even while I was a Methodist pastor, I made an act of total consecration to the Blessed Virgin Mary.
Oh, such an amazing.
And it changed my life immediately. It was one of those. I'm not someone that has a lot of religious experiences. Some people do. I never really do. My experience of God has always been more on the intellectual side, but I don't have visions. I don't have a lot of experiential experiences of grace. But I remember after I did that, things really began to change for me. And what it ended up doing, remember what I said, that I made a decision years before that I was going to remain a United Methodist pastor. All right, so I let go of the idea of becoming a Catholic. And some of that was because I couldn't find a job. But number two, my wife was not on board with me converting as well. She thought I was going through some kind of crazy experience. Nevertheless, I never thought about becoming a Catholic again until I made that act of total consecration. And so what I ended up doing is I had a reawakening of a desire to go back to a Mass. So I went to a Mass on an off weekend when I was a pastor. I think it was around Easter. And after the Mass, I spoke to the priest there, and I said to him, he was a young priest, I said, do you meet people through the week? He said, sure. I said, I think I would like to meet you because I'm going through something. I'm a Protestant pastor, and I think God might be calling me to become a Catholic. And he met with me, and I'm getting to the point, getting to the answer to your question. So I did meet with him. And remember what I said, the priest that I had met years before said, look, I don't know what you can do, Shane. Remember I told you he said that? Well, this priest, when I sat with him, he began to ask me a series of questions about what I believed. And at the end of his assessment, he put it this way. This is what I heard. He didn't say it this way, but he said, you are already a Catholic. Everything you're telling me is pointing you to full communion in the Catholic Church. And he began to make me realize that I could not be comfortable anymore remaining a United Methodist pastor. And he mentioned something about how my revelation here, what I was coming to understand and what I believed was a grace. Like, this is a grace. You know, it is not flesh and blood, Shane, that's revealed this to you. It is not you that's come to this conclusion. It is grace that is allowing you to understand that in Catholicism is the fullness of the faith. And he made me realize, and he said in these kinds of terms, but not the same way, that I was under a moral obligation to become Catholic, that truth makes a claim over us, and I cannot rest where I am knowing what I know. Well, I left that encounter just confused, shocked, afraid, thinking, what am I going to do again with the rest of my life? But he did meet with me occasionally. He was just a wonderful pastor, just there to support me. And he understood the situation I had with a family. I mean, this would mean the loss of everything. And he would ask me questions like, over coffee, I've got my coffee right here. He would say, well, what if you just left? I mean, what's the worst thing that can happen? You just leave everything today. Tell everybody you're quitting. And I was like, brother, I've got a wife and I've got kids. But it was those kinds of needling questions that I needed at the time. Maybe that would not have been effective on someone else at a different part of their journey. But for me, he was hitting all the right buttons.
Wow. So, what you told to us earlier, that Mama Mary has a big role in your conversion.
Yes, what I tell people is that Jesus is the efficient cause of my conversion. I mean, this is all about Jesus. But
Yes.
Mary was certainly the instrumental cause of my conversion. So what ended up, what through my devotion to the Virgin Mary and seeing her, and I'd love to get into what I was beginning to see in the New Testament, but we'll save that for just a second. But it was my love for her, my conversations with this Catholic priest, where I began to realize, man, I'm becoming less and less Methodist. You know, I'm becoming more removed now from my own Methodist family, you know, because I would tell my Protestant pastor friends, I'll start talking to them about the Virgin Mary, like, you know, we really need the Virgin Mary in Protestantism. Why should only Catholics love her? I mean, she's our mother. And they would look at me like I'm this strange lunatic, you know. So I was kind of coming out of Methodism in very many ways. And then, of course, the Methodist Church right now is struggling with marriage and all kinds of doctrinal issues. And I began to really realize early on that not only am I no longer fitting in as a Methodist pastor among Methodists because of where my theological conversion was taking me, doctrinally, even biblically, I was no longer Methodist with where the church was going. You know, so in some sense, I left Methodism, but in another sense, Methodism was leaving me. Does that make sense?
Hello mga ka-faith, if you want to support the ministry of Sis Carmela, para bilhin po ang kanyang gawang beeswax candle, and kung di ka familiar dito sa beeswax candle, ito po ay sinabi ng ating mga Catholic saint regarding sa 3 days of darkness, na ito lang daw yung kind of candle na sisindi pag 3 days of darkness na. Pero ito ay isang private revelation, okay? Hindi po tayo fino-force na maniwala dito. Pero kung ikaw ay interested, mag-avail ng beeswax candles, and ang beeswax candles naman ay hindi lang naman to for 3 days of darkness. Kung titignan mo ay maraming benefit din ang beeswax candle kasi pure po siya at natural. So maganda siya sa environment. If you want to avail this beeswax candle, you may contact Sis Carmela dito sa number na makikita nyo dito sa screen. Okay? So paki-text or paki-Viber na lang po siya. And also, maraming salamat pa rin sa inyong suporta sa ating mga merchandise item sa Adrian Milag Store. Okay, so available pa rin ang ating mga merchandise item sa Shopee and sa Merchiful. Nasa link po sa baba ng video na to yung details kung saan kayo pwedeng mag-avail ng ating mga merchandise item. And also mga ka-faith, if you want to support DAAN para sa bokasyon, ito po ay monthly pledge sa ating mga seminarians ng Antipolo Cathedral, na ito ay sobrang makakatulong sa kanilang pag-aaral bilang isang seminarista. Okay, so if you want to support them by pledging 100 pesos a month, you may contact the number that I provided on this video, or nakalagay dito sa baba ng video na to. Ilalagay ko yung details kung saan kayo pwedeng magtanong, kung saan kayo pwedeng magpadala ng 100 pesos nyo to support our seminarians. Okay, so thank you and God bless. So that's it. Thank you for watching this video. I hope na na-bless at na-inspire ka dito sa aking vlog. Make sure na i-like mo at mag-comment ka sa baba ng video na to at mag-subscribe ka sa aking YouTube channel para lagi kang updated sa mga bagong vlog na gagawin ko. At huwag mo din kakalimutan na i-like ang aking page. So this been Adrian, Milag, encouraging you to live your life to the fullest. God bless you more abundantly.